Welcome to another fun-filled hashtag Football Friday edition of Second City Sports. We're live in the living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakina McGee, which is she. I am Sydney Brownhead. That's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. It's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow Lakina McGee on the Twitter, X, again, the IG.
Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our podcast at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media. Excuse me. PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And make sure you give War Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance. Your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinions during our 2-hour extravaganza, we call it Sports Talk Radio Show, you can hit us up in the comment section at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. But you decide to troll in order to do something silly, dumb, or stupid, I've given Lakina full power to give you fools the bill and be a boot.
Toodles.
But before we begin, we must remind you can catch Sports Zone Chicago live in 11 color on Roku TV. That's right. So celebrate with the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. If you already have a Roku television, just tap on that sports folder and download their Sports Zone Chicago app. If you don't have a Roku television, but you have some handheld devices laying around, iPhone, iPad, iTouch, your Android, your Chromebook, or your PC, just head up to Google Play Store and download that Roku TV app and find Sports Zone Chicago and access Sports Zone Chicago through that avenue. So no more excuses. Celebrate with the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Live and on demand.
Anytime, anywhere.
And you know we will provide.
And we will provide here on Second City Sports. Of course, we'll recap Panthers, Bears, yay, from last night. Of course, we'll talk about the NBA and college football week 11. We're already because a few weeks left in this regular season. It's a little nutty. Evan Altman from Cubs Insider to talk about the Craig Counsell hiring and some potential big names coming to the Cubs, or perhaps maybe think about coming to the Cubs. We'll see about that. And of course, KXRB's Christine Manica will join us for our Week 10 pick'ems in the NFL. And Week 10, and also to some sports media news that came across the pipe, just yesterday on Thursday. But first,
inside handoff, 4-yard gain here for Foreman. 5 years at Shepherd University in West Virginia. Born and raised in West Virginia. Play action here. Nice move and a 10-yard pickup by DJ Moore. Back to the ground. Nice cutback move. And up to the 43-yard line goes Deontay Foreman. 2nd down and 5. Play action. Ton of time. Flips it out here. First down for Chicago here. From the 37-yard line and the inside end around to Tyler Scott.
Sixers men alive.
Yeah. 3rd down and 10. Swallowed it up at the 2-yard line.
We had a share of mistakes, but we had few enough that we were able to pull out the victory.
Bears going for it on 4th down and 4, trying to keep the drive alive, and they do to the 22-yard line. The pass is caught there by Tyler Scott. Opening drive of the second half. Soldier Field in Chicago. In the pocket. And throws, and that's batted away. It's incomplete. You got Stevenson there.
And those are the highlights from Amazon Prime, as of course the Bears hold off the Panthers 16-13 in Thursday Night Football. I'm going to be honest, Sid, that game, that game, like I said, football back at least 20 years, I think. Between drop passes, and the Bears came up a punt return for a touchdown, but the Panthers basically shot themselves in the foot too, so the Bears were able to benefit from that. All right, Sid. I got nothing to say on this game. Like I was like, you heard that was Jason Kelce, of course, from the center for the Philadelphia Eagles. They're on bye this week, so they joined him to move. I'm sure if Al Michaels had his way, he would have been there the whole freaking game. That's just how bad it was. But
Sid, you would have Taylor Swift to piss him off, but that's a whole other issue. But
that's a whole that's a whole other conversation. Sid, what you say? What do you think about last night's game, Sid?
that was a hell of a doozer last night, to be honest with you. But the game within the game, the Bears defense actually got back on track. Not one, Lakina, 2, 3 sacks. Lakina, did I see what I thought I saw on the stat sheet in the game last night? They had 3 sacks. 3 sacks. So I guess that's something that was positive about the Bears last night. Number 2, Montez Sweat. I know he didn't record a sack, but you can tell his presence on that defensive line made everybody's game around them on that defensive front step it up. Yes, they were playing the Carolina Panthers, but you could tell that defense was juiced last night. We saw and heard on those highlight packages. Tyreek Stevenson, the rookie defensive back out of Miami, I thought he played a hell of a game last night. And Carolina, I know they don't have much outside their quarterback, Bryce Young, but that Bears defense stepped up last night. Offensively, as we said, with rookie quarterback Tyson Bagent, he kept everything in front of him. He really took a couple of shots down the field. It didn't work, but it really didn't come back to bite them in the butt. The Bears had a strong running game last night. Deontay Foreman had over 80 yards rushing again in a touchdown. Thank you, Deontay. It helped me on my fantasy team last night. But I digress from that. But the Bears did enough just to beat a bad Carolina team. I know you foolish Bears fans were happy that Carolina lost because that means that if the Carolina has the worst record in the NFL, you own their number 1 pick for next year. But outside of that, the Bears need to win this game just for a morale standpoint. Now I'm hearing people like Colin Cowherd and some of you fools on the quote-unquote Mike Greenberg get-up show on ESPN. They can make a playoff run. Stop it!
Oh my! Seriously? Because I did not watch any of that stuff this morning because I was like, look, I don't want to recap the Bears Panthers. I don't want anyone here. But people are saying, really, they're 3-7 and they play Detroit. I know they played Detroit in 10 days, but good Lord, seriously? What? Who the hell is? Oh Jesus! But anyway, but yeah, I mean, look, you beat Carolina. Whoop-de-doo. All right. I mean, like, well, again, what do you want me to say? I mean, look, Tyson Bagent wasn't spectacular. Okay, he didn't need to be. That Panthers team is nothing to write home about. I mean, I'm sorry, they're not. And the fact that they didn't go for it on 4th and 10, I mean, they had Eddie Pereira try a 60-yard field goal, which his highest is like 54 yards. So the fact that they really, that just shows that Frank Wright does not trust his rookie quarterback. And that's a fireable offense right there. Now, as far as the Bears are concerned, okay, yeah, you look fine. Okay, you look good. Okay. But I think for me, I think, okay, Deontay Foreman has some good stats like he usually does. He has those about 2 or 3 times a season. But I'm sorry. Look, they play Detroit, they play Minnesota, both on the road. Then they have their bye week. Then they have the Detroit after that. And they play Cleveland. You're really saying that this team could put up? Are some of y'all high? Like, are you kidding me? But I mean, and of course they did the whole narrative about, well, Justin Fields can learn a little something from Tyson. Oh God, can we stop doing that again, please? Please stop. I mean, look, okay, he didn't make any mistakes. He wasn't spectacular either, but okay, it is what it is. I'm sorry, like I can't get excited for some. Like you play a game. Look, if they would have lost the game, it would have been a bigger story. The fact that they won barely, though, just barely. I'm like, okay, whatever.
No pun intended.
Literally, no pun intended.
Oh, you want to hear some more? You don't want to hear some more foolishness, Lakina?
Oh,
and we didn't talk about this. Yeah, we didn't talk about this we did not talk about this on Monday, but Boomer Esiason suggested a quarterback controversy because of the way the Bears played in that first half against the Saints. If Tyson Bagent, just paraphrasing here, if Tyson Bagent keeps on playing like this, you got to think twice about Justin Fields. Really?
Oh, I heard that. I heard it after that Saints game, during that Saints halftime, that Saints game. I almost switched the channel. I'm like, really, Boomer, you know better, sweetie. But I digress. I'm sorry, but no, I can't get behind that. I mean, you look at their schedule. I mean, like I said, they play Detroit twice in the next 3 after the bye. Then they have Minnesota on Monday nights. Oh boy. They got Cleveland, they got Arizona, Atlanta, who might be fighting for a playoff spot. and also at Green Bay on January 2nd. So 7th, I should say. So I'm like, what? They may be looking to win 3 of those games if they're lucky. So I'm like, to say that they're going to put up a playoff push, really, folks? Stop. Just stop. Stop.
Both of us did not have them in the playoffs this year. But I think there's a way they could exactly double their win total from last year, Lakina. Go through that schedule again one more time. Or one more again, as the kids would say.
Detroit, Minnesota, both
That's
on
a
the
loss.
road. Then they have
That's
a bye
loss.
week. Yeah, on Monday night. They have a bye week after that. Then they play Detroit again at home.
You may can sneak that one, maybe. But right now, I'll say that's a loss.
At Cleveland.
That's a loss.
And Arizona on Christmas Eve.
That's a win. Arizona stinks. I know Kyler Murray's back. We'll talk about that later. But I think that's your next win.
Atlanta.
Maybe. And I think that's here, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that's here. Like you said, they'll probably be fighting for a playoff spot, but I think they can get Atlanta.
And of course, they finish on January 7th against Green Bay.
That might be a win. It
depends on where Green Bay is by that point. So again, they may go 3-7. These 3-6. I should see. They may go 3-3 these next games, but a playoff. Really, I'm glad because I would have lost my mind if I had heard that in real time. So I'm like, good Lord, y'all bored, right? Okay, y'all can't talk about Michigan for for so long, but whatever. I digress. But look, a nice win. Look, they barely won against Carolina. So I'm sorry if I'm not excited about them being a 3. Carolina teams could probably have the worst record and may have to completely change their coaching staff or maybe their front office staff. So I'm sorry if I'm not doing backflips over it. Sorry.
Maybe the Bears will surprise you when they upset Detroit next week. I'm throwing a lifeline.
A little. All right. On that note, we're going to take a really quick break. Of course, you guys can still comment on the Bears win against the Panthers on our Sports on Chicago's YouTube and Facebook pages. But we're going to take a really quick break. We're going to talk some NBA and some college football as well. The Bulls have kind of a mixed week. They kind of some people say they might have let that game against the Suns slip away a couple of days ago. We'll talk more about that. And the rest of the week in the NBA. Then we'll preview college football week 11 as some big games. Same Saturday, as we're probably going to call it here. A lot to do still in this first hour. Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago. Lakina, Cindy Brown, NBA and college football talk coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Oh, brother. Welcome back to Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago. You follow Kayla McGee on the Twitter, X, at Kayla in the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80. We have exactly 85 minutes left of this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. You have any questions or comments for us, you can hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you.
Okay, Sid. So let's go to the hardwood and talk some Bulls and NBA. The Bulls, a mixed bag this week. They beat the Jazz. Jazz have kind of been sort of, taking a couple of steps back lately. Not okay. Look, a great team effort. I think they had they shot 40% from three-point range in that game. So do what you're supposed to against a team that's probably a little bit better than. So not again a really good performance by them. Zach LaVine had 24. DeMar had 21. Vooch only had 10 points late, but he made some big shots late, and Kobe White also made some big shots late. And they actually had some great contributions from the bench too. Alex Caruso had 16. Javon Carter had 12, and Andre Drummond. It's always an experience when he plays. Is on the floor. Both had double figure. All three of them had double figures. So that was one of the main reasons why the Bulls were going to win that game. Turn over to Wednesday against the Suns. Had a couple of chances perhaps maybe to take control of the game. They weren't. They overcame a first quarter real thrashing. They got it down to I think like 10, 8 or 10 or something like that by the second quarter. Unfortunately, couldn't just make the shots late. 116, 115. Grayson Allen, killed the Bulls again. 26 points for him. Of course, Bradley Beal his first game back after missing a couple of weeks due to a knee. So, Sid, what do you think? The Bulls are now 3-6.
First of all, congratulations to Andre Drummond. He grabbed his 10,000th career rebound in that win against Utah on Monday night. So, congrats to him. The Bulls did what they had to do against Utah. They played great defense. As you mentioned, they got great contributions from their bench. And so they had a great start early, and they kept the hammer on the Utah Jazz, and that's why they won that game by double digits. Now, Wednesday's game was a whole different story. They did follow the same script, but they were out-rebounded by Phoenix 53-38, I believe their advantage was. Now, they did, talking about the Bulls, did shoot the three-point shot well. They shot it at a 42% clip, including Alex Caruso off the bench. He had 4 or 5 of his three-point shots. And his defense down the stretch in that fourth quarter, especially in that last possession of regulation against Kevin Durant, his defensive average was nothing short but of outstanding. The Bulls had an 4-point lead, I should say, in overtime with DeRozan hitting that jumper, which made it 115-101. But the Suns, this as we talked about before, Lakina, we said this last week about this Bulls team. You need to know what to do in last-minute situations. The Bulls ran out of gas in the last minutes of that overtime. The Suns didn't. They made some big shots, and they won the game. The Bulls did everything right on Wednesday, but win that game. They should have won that game, but if we thought that the Bulls are this mediocre team trying to fight for a playoff spot, which I think is what's going to happen between now at the beginning of April when the regular season is over, these types of games right now in late October, November, and December is going to impact where you get into the playoffs and now coming to the end of the season, because you're going to look back at the entire season, look at the beginning around this time. This game we let get away, that game we let get away. We should have won this. We should have won that. Close game. The Bulls are now 2-3 in close games this season, and that's not going to get it done if you want to be a playoff team.
Yeah, Durant made a couple of big shots. I think Jurkic had a couple of big rebounds. Nurkic, I should say. So
we told you also have the Phoenix Suns front line. You saw that on Wednesday.
Yeah, you showed him why 17 rebounds in that game, with the addition to his 20 points. So, that was one of the reasons why the Bulls lost that game, unfortunately. And look, this is Suns' only trip to the UC this year. So, yeah, they had to make it count. They weren't able to do that. So, I know some people want to bitch and moan about, this team is exactly who we thought they were. I mean, look, they had a very tough schedule. I mean, look, it could be worse than this. They're 3-6. They had a couple of games slip away. You probably say they could be 4-5 or 5-4 had they had won at least a couple of those close games. So, it's just one of those things where you just gotta take it one game at a time and just press on. And hopefully, they can kind of get it together. They do have a few days off before they get back into it on Sunday against the Pistons. They can get their revenge on them. So speaking of close games, they lost a tough one to them in Detroit earlier this year. So maybe they can get a little bit of a get back and a get right for them. So hopefully they can do that. So what caught your eye in the rest of the NBA this week?
Let's go back to the Milwaukee Bucks. I know they won their 2 games this week, but Wednesday night's contest against the Detroit Pistons, if you look at the box score, didn't read the story, it was too close to call. You want to know why? Because the referees decided to be stupid and throw Giannis out of the game. Why?
I digress. That was just an awful display by that ref, and I'm sure he got a letter from Adam Silver. Someone got a letter from Mr. Silver. It wasn't Giannis, I can tell you that much. So Giannis just gave him a look like these refs have like such short fuses. Like they're not these fans are not coming to see you. The TV camera's not there to see you, you knucklehead. So hopefully I'm sure that guy got that letter. But on the flip side, though, I guess Giannis wanted to make up for that. He did score 54 points, which was among a career high for him. But unfortunately, they lost in Indiana. Congrats to Rick Carlisle for his 900 win as a coach, by the way. 126, 124 he did a couple of days ago. Tyrese Halliburton had 29 points. And the pace was coming up and down. Of course, we saw what what Utah did to them, but but they were able to kind of bounce back. Now they were a respectable 6-3 record. Who knew that they would have a better record than the Bucks right now? But I digress.
Yeah, and also too, you mentioned of the Eastern Conference, the Philadelphia 76ers. I believe they won 6 or 7 in a row. After losing in Milwaukee on opening night. They won a close one against the Boston Celtics the other night by 3 points, 106-103 at home. Joel Embiid is having a nice start to the season. Of course, they got rid of James Harden. We'll bring him up in just a minute. But it looks like his new teammates are starting to get used to him. New head coach Nick Nurse is starting to implement his system. So, as we said, it was Philadelphia, Boston, Milwaukee, and everybody else in the Eastern Conference can go and play. Philadelphia is starting to play like a championship caliber team. Even though it's still early, but it looks like it's starting to get their feet underneath them.
Yeah, they've been quietly kind of, they're like, won 7 in a row since that loss to the Bucks. So I'm like, I'm sure they don't mind, folks not really paying attention to them. I think they're fine with that. So, excuse me, for the Sixers, easy for me to say, but but a nice, great win, great, for them, against the Celtics. I think that's not, I know they got a little bit of revenge after having the playoffs last year, but I think they want to kind of like, get spread it and get it going. The Warriors lose to the Nuggets 108-105. I actually watched this game on Wednesday, and it was definitely kind of one of those games where I know the Nuggets, they're 8-1, they're the defending champs, but you kind of wonder, like, okay, the points, we knew Steph was going to get his points. Clay struggled a little bit. He was 2 for 8 from the 3-point range, so that kind of didn't help him, especially when it came to hitting big shots late. I'm not going to sit here and say, look, the Nuggets are 8-1. I'm not going to sit here and say they're going to just give them the trophy now. But I think they're kind of making a case that, look, they're the class of the West right now, and you knocked them off. So, but if you're the Warriors, you kind of let a couple of points on the board.
Yeah, if you're the Warriors who said this coming into the year, you have something to prove, especially after the way you exited out of the playoffs last season against the Lakers. Steph, Clay, and Dre, they're the veteran groups that's going to lead these younger guys to hopefully the NBA Finals. Don't forget about Chris Paul, who they acquired via free agency over the summer as well. Now, on the flip side for the Denver Nuggets, is you said don't hand them the trophy just yet. Well, they're going to have their first hurdle of the season because Jamal Murray, who got injured in that game on Wednesday, he's going to miss the rest of this month.
Yeah, that's going to be a big loss. So I'm interested to see how they're going to react to that since he is going to be gone for the next month. They got a pretty tough schedule coming up too this next month. So we'll see how they do in that front. There was one more team I wanted to talk about before we go into the Clippers, of course, with James Harden. They're now 0-2 with Harden in the lineup. Knicks they lose to Knicks, I should say, 111-97 on Monday, and then they lose another tough one. And I kind of feel like, I don't know, should it be panic time for the Clippers, or is it going to take them a while, because they lost to Brooklyn, a tough one too, by 7. They're 0-2 so far in their East Coast road trip. So what do you think? Can the Harden and the Clippers kind of figure things out?
I think they'll be able to figure things out. Also, too, it starts with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard both staying healthy, which they've done for the most part to start this early season. But if those two can stay healthy, I think the rest will fall in line. I know some people want to talk about put Russell Westbrook back on the bench. No, that's not happening anytime soon, so you can let that go. But it's going to take – remember, James Harden's still not in basketball shape yet, so it's going to take him at least another week or two. I know some folks don't want to hear that, but he's got to get in shape, and he's got to learn how to play with those other 3 alpha males, these basketball alpha males I just mentioned. So it's going to take another week or two, but – like you said, you cannot give these games away. Like you said, they didn't show up against the Knicks on Monday, and they actually had a chance in that game against Brooklyn the other night, and it just didn't go well for them. But as long as your main guys don't get hurt, I think they'll be okay. Now, the other team I know you're going to probably we'll bring them up quickly, is the Los Angeles Lakers. I'm more concerned about them.
Yeah, I am too. Yeah, 0-2. I mean, they get pummeled by Houston, and then they lose a tough one to Miami. They really needed that win to Miami, did, but then they turn around and end up losing to Houston. So, after the Tuesday day off. But yeah, I mean, I'm a little concerned about them right now, especially with that Houston game. I know, look, LeBron's doing his thing, and as we know he will, but the rest of the guys on the other court, I mean, that was just like, they made fewer threes than their opponent. Shot a worse percentage from 3 than their opponent. Their first in NBA history to do such a thing, and they're each of their first 8 games. So that 3-point shot's been a big issue for them so far this year. Despite they have 3 wins, but they were outshot in the 3-point line, and that was the case. There were 7 for 25 in that loss to Houston. So I'm like, what's going on? I know that Roy Akamura had 24 off the bench. He had to pick up the slack, but Austin Reeves been struggling lately. Christian Wood, had 0 points, as a starter because AD took the game off. So I don't know what to say about this Lakers team. It's just I don't know.
Yeah, you hope that was just a bad game you throw away in a trash can if you're the Lakers. But as we said before, we'll keep saying it throughout this season. Both LeBron James and Anthony Davis got to stay healthy and play in the majority of their games this year for the Lakers to have a chance. If both of them are out, of course, the Lakers have no shot, even though they have a better roster than they did at this point last year before the trade deadline. Anthony Davis, he's the franchise, whether he wants to accept it or not. LeBron James cannot continue to play over 32 minutes a night and expect him to do everything. He's a great athlete. He's in great shape. He's going to be 39 years old at the end of next month. But if you expect him to do everything and everybody else to, quote, unquote, take a back seat, it's going to be trouble. We saw that act before last year. How did it work out? None. Yeah, it was bad.
It was bad. They got their butts kicked by Denver. So, that's going to be a really big, thing. Hopefully within these next week, especially these next couple of games in this road trip, hopefully they can figure things out. But I'm a little worried. Like I said, I'm more worried about the Lakers and the Clippers. And the Clippers I'm sure they'll be fine once Harden gets in basketball shape and get disciplined into that system. I'm sure Tyler will figure it out. So I'm not worried about them. The Lakers are really what I'm worried about. And there are already folks in Lakerland that want Darvin Ham fired. So
that's not happening. Folks, that's not happening. One more quick thing before we give out this weekend schedule. Did you catch any of the Knicks Spurs game on Wednesday? Victor Wembanyama's debut at MSG. What did you think about the Knicks fans, quote unquote, trolling Mr. Wembanyama at the free throw line? Overrated.
Yeah, I mean that wasn't very nice. And the Knicks fans are very I don't want to say mean, but that was kind of uncalled for. I mean, like, he's 17 years, he's only 18, he's young. He'll get some muscle in him. I mean, at least so far, he's actually looked pretty good. So for them to chant overrated, I mean, look, he towers over Tom Brady. So that was actually pretty funny how Brady kind of played with that But
Yeah.
I think did Brady have a late a midlife growth spurt? Did we miss something? But no, that was just a nice Photoshop by his social media team. But back to this. I mean, look, he's gonna have his growing pains. I'm sure Pop's gonna have him do the whole low management seating, if you will. So I'm not worried. He's actually been pretty good so far. You saw unfortunately it was against the Suns and without Bradley Beal. So it's kind of hard to make that kind of assumptions. I know that he didn't have he didn't even play. He only had 14 points, so he's 0 for 4 from 3, only 4 for 14 from the field. So look, playing the Madison Square Garden is very massive. So I'm sure the next time they play, I don't think they play again this year. So I'm sure he'll have a bigger showing when they do play again in MSG, and I'm sure they're going to make him wish not to. They have him shut up.
All right, let's go into tonight's schedule for the weekend from the world of the National Basketball Association. Remember the play-in tournament every Tuesday, every Friday for the month of November. The in-season tournament games will take place. Of course, it didn't take place this past Tuesday because of the elections in certain states, so the NBA had the day off. So day 2, Act 2, we should say, of the in-season play-in tournament will resume tonight. Here's the schedule as follows. The Philadelphia 76ers will visit Detroit to take on the Pistons. The Hornets and Wizards will do battle in D.C., in our nation's capital. The Nets and the Celtics will be the first game of that in-season tournament doubleheader for ESPN tonight. So the Nets and the Celtics from Beantown at 6:30. Of course, you have New Orleans at Houston. The Utah Jazz at almost said Vancouver at the Memphis Grizzlies. Both those teams had the 2 worst records in the Western Conference. We had Minnesota visiting San Antonio. The Clippers and the Mavericks. The Lakers and the Suns. That's the second game of the ESPN doubleheader tonight. And we have the Oklahoma City Thunder visiting the Sacramento Kings.
I'm sure ESPN wish they would have flexed, that LA game for the other LA and for the Clippers and the Mavs. That probably will be a better game, but we'll see. We'll see. Tomorrow, Saturday's game, we got Milwaukee and Orlando, up and coming Magic. That should be a fun one. Dave versus Fitzgerald, Pablo Fitzgerald. Toronto and Boston at 6:00. Miami, they've been playing a little bit better lately. They faced Atlanta and Trae Young. They've been kind of had a slow start, talking about the Hawks. And the NBA TV Saturday night game, you'll have the Cavs and the Warriors. That should be interesting.
All right, and wrapping up your weekend schedule for Sunday. Sunday is following. The following games are as follows. The Detroit Pistons, as Lakina mentioned, they'll take on the Bulls at the United Center. That's at 6:00 at the UC. Other games at 11:00 right before football at MSG. I think they have a New York Rangers hockey game that night.
Yeah.
The Charlotte Hornets will take on the New York Knicks at 11 a.m. Chicago time. Wizards will take on the Brooklyn Nets. Memphis will visit Los Angeles to play the Clippers at 2:30. The Pacers at 76ers. The Nuggets at the Rockets. Mavericks at New Orleans to take on the Pelicans. Rematch of the 2013-14 NBA Finals as the Heat will visit Victor Wembanyama in the San Antonio Spurs. And then the Phoenix will host Oklahoma City. Minnesota will visit Golden State. And the Portland Trail Blazers will take on the Los Angeles Lakers to wrap up the Sunday night schedule.
Well, they each won, so there won't be any revenge there. I guess they'll have whoever wins will have bragging rights against next time they play. So it'll be pretty funny, but that is your schedule for this weekend in the NBA. As the Second City Sports Sports of Chicago, Lakina McGee, Sydney Brown with you as we very quickly go to the college gridiron as we wrap things up here in hour 1. We're already at week 11, and no change in the top 6 in the playoff standings. So, Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, and Florida State, those are your top 4. Then you got Oregon and Washington, those are your top 6. So no real changes there, but there might be some changes here this weekend. Louisville beat Virginia. They had to hold them off there, but going into you have Wyoming, UNLV, that could be for a spot in the Mountain West Conference on that division. So that'll be on FS1. The Fighting Little Rahimis, they go on the road to face SMU on ESPN Tuesday night at 8. Then you got the big noon Saturday game tomorrow. Saturday, you got Michigan and Penn State. All right, James Franklin, here's your chance to put your money where your mouth is. That you said Michigan hasn't played anybody, hence the guy that played UMass, a couple weeks ago. But what do you think about? What do you think is going to happen in this game, Sid?
Michigan may become undoing because of that cheating scandal. I know word came out earlier today that a ruling could be put down soon on the Michigan Wolverines program. We'll see about that. As of right now, as of this live broadcast Friday, Jim Harbaugh, the head coach of Michigan, is supposed to be on the plane with his players traveling to the state of Pennsylvania for the game tomorrow. But Michigan's favored by 4 points. I think it's going to be a very tough, close game. Penn State, they're going to have to play it close to perfection. No turnovers, no dumb penalties. They're going to have to put up some points, and they're going to have to create a couple of turnovers. J.J. McCarthy, the starting quarterback of Michigan, he's having a nice year so far, 18 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. I think Michigan will survive this game, but I think it may be tough on them the next couple of weeks as they play Maryland. And of course, they play Ohio State on Thanksgiving weekend. Will the punishment come down on that program within those next 2 weeks? Probably, but for this game, I think Michigan will be geared up for it. But after that, it could be some trouble. Depends on what the ruling is. Like I said, we'll get into the ruling another time, but because it hasn't come down yet. But as far as this game is concerned, I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think Michigan will come out on top because I think their defense is just a little bit better than Penn State's.
That's how I feel about the whole cheating thing with Michigan.
Me too. But we got to report the news, folks.
Yeah, I know, but it seems kind of like asinine and silly. They talked about for the whole almost the whole show. I'm like, okay, I guess it's better than them talking Carolina and Bears, but I guess I digress. But yeah, I think for me, I think Michigan's gonna use this as motivation. All this has been going on, off the field. There's been talking about some of the various players and whatnot. So I think they're gonna use that. And I'm not gonna say it's gonna be a blowout, but I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan just pummels Penn State. To me, Penn State, they haven't had a good doing with third down. So for me, that's going to be the key if they want to keep J.J. McCarthy, Blake Corum, the rest of the Michigan offense off the field. That's going to be a real key. So if they can't do that, then it's going to be a long night in Happy Valley. So we'll see what happens there. Now, Alabama, Kentucky on ESPN at 11 a.m. You think Kentucky has the shots?
Kind of, sort of, but to upset, no. Alabama has this one, as I talked about the last few weeks. Jalen Milroe, the starting quarterback for Alabama, he's really found his footing. He has more confidence. That Alabama defense has been carrying this team all year, along with that strong running game. I think it's going to be the same recipe right here as Alabama. Even though it's a small chance, they still have a shot to get into that fourth slot in the college football playoff. But so I think they'll go into Kentucky, handle the Wildcats.
All right, Kansas hosts Texas. That's on Texas, I should say. That's on FS1. Tulane hosts Tulsa. On ESPN2. You got Illinois hosting Indiana on BTN at 11 a.m. Maryland and Nebraska both hoping to bounce back.
Yeah, Illinois go 500.
Yeah, and that'll be streamed on Peacock. That's probably better than it goes on Peacock. Virginia Tech and Boston College, they've been playing pretty well. The Eagles have. Clemson off the upset against Notre Dame. They host Georgia Tech on ABC. You got Arizona. They're in the top. I think they're just like the first time. I think since 2017 or something like that. They've been in the top 25. They go on the road into Boulder and play Dion, his kid, and the gang over in Colorado. That'll be on the Pac-12 network though. So you have to go look listen for that.
Yeah, I'm cheering hard as hell for Colorado, but I think they're in a rude awakening.
Yeah, that Arizona defense is really suffocating. So he might, Shooter may have his doing. So we'll see what happens there. Now on ESPN Plus at 1 o'clock, you got UConn facing undefeated James Madison at 9-0. So that'll be an interesting game there. You guys can check that out as it's streamed on ESPN Plus if you want. Let's see. Kansas State, against Baylor. That's on the Big 12 ESPN Plus channel. We got ABC, got the old rivalry for Miami and Florida State. This was a big rivalry back in the day. So what do you think about this one for this year? That'll be at 2:30 on ABC.
Miami had another bad loss, I believe it was last week, and said Tyler Van Dyke, he's not the answer at quarterback anymore. If they didn't have that bad loss, maybe I would feel much better about the huge chances of upsetting Florida State, but I don't see that happening. Jordan Travis, as we talked about throughout the season on the show, Lakina, he's in my top 3 for Heisman candidate. He's that star quarterback for the Seminoles. He has 19 touchdowns and 2 interceptions on the year. I don't know if it's going to be a blowout. I wouldn't be surprised if it was. Florida State's favored by 2 touchdowns at home. I'm not going to tell you if they take Florida State as far as point spreads are concerned, but I will take them to beat Miami because Miami's been very disappointing year this year for them, even though they're 6-3.
Yeah, they've been disappointed, so we'll see what happens there. Real quick, Utah and Washington on the big Fox network. That should be a fun one there. Tennessee and the Fighting Mike Bourbons, Mizzou at 2:30 on CBS. That should be another good one. Oklahoma home to bounce back from the loss to Oklahoma State. They stay on the road to face UCF and ESPN at 2:30. Iowa hosts Rutgers at the same time on BTN. Northwestern and Wisconsin. Wisconsin, I think, is now they're in the driver's seat now. I believe in the Big Ten West, if I'm not mistaken. If Iowa loses to Rutgers and the Wisconsin beats Northwestern, they could probably perhaps maybe sneak in there in the Big Ten West. We'll see what happens with that. Auburn at Arkansas to Oregon State and Stanford. They host Stanford. That's going to be on the Pac-12 network. Ole Miss and Georgia, real quick at 6 o'clock on ESPN. What do you think about this one, real fast?
I think Georgia will win the game, but I think Ole Miss will surprise some folks.
Should be interesting in that game. Oklahoma State actually faces UCF. You're hoping they'll have a letdown after that win against Oklahoma. Now, speaking of Oklahoma, they host West Virginia at 6 o'clock on Fox. So I'm thinking they may take it out on West Virginia. So I don't know. The Mountaineers better be ready for that. Maybe ready for that. Michigan State, Ohio State on NBC. Texas at TCU at 6:30 on ABC. And I think that's it. Duke faces North Carolina on the ACC. Never know. It's not basketball season. They haven't started conference play yet. Arizona State, UCLA. Oregon hosts USC. What do you think about this game? Really quick. That's 9:30 on
maybe USC has an upset in them. But I think Oregon's going to squeak this one out. This is a bigger game for Oregon because they're one of the handful of teams they're vying for that fourth and last playoff spot in the college football playoff. Bo Nix should have a big game.
Yeah, I'm wondering, though, if USC has a bad ending to their season. Could Lincoln Riley be on his way out? Like I said, they got a new AD now, and she might not be very happy with what's going on, Jennifer Cohen. So that should be looking out for Fresno State at 9:30 on CBS Sports Network. They host. They go to San Jose State and Air Force. Hoping to bounce back for the loss to Army. They go to the Big Island to face Hawaii at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, one more big game on the SEC network at 6:30. Florida will travel to Louisiana to face LSU. Big game for Brian Kelly and crew.
And for Florida too, I think so. It might be a big game for both of them. So we'll see what happens. That's your schedule for the college football. I should say week 11.
Yeah, stay tuned for more sports and more fun as Second City Sports continues with Evan Altman from CubsInsider.com and Christine the Queen Manica. You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago.
Do you know that you're in my lane? No, not at all. Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Move it! the calling, few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakeem McGee, which is she. I am Sydney Brownhead. That's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter X in IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Keenan McGee on the Twitter X at Keenan McGee on the IG.
Make sure you follow Sports on Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And if you have any questions and comments, especially for our next guest as we get into Cubs baseball talk, you can always hit us up at Sports on Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports on Chicago YouTube. Type in those questions and comments to the comments section. Lakina will get the upward screen for you. And just a daily reminder, you can get Sports on Chicago live and live in color on Roku TV.
Okay, so it's been a while since we had this guy on, but I know he's in a much better mood than we could talk to him last time. He's one of the founders of the Real Cubs Insider. And look, with all the Cubs news, we knew the perfect person, one of the perfect people that we wanted to kind of chime in, but all this has been going on. So he is the one, the only, the fabulous Mr. Evan Altman. Evan, how are ya?
I'm good. That's I appreciate that welcome. That's kind of nice.
Well, we try. No. So, I don't know if the Craig Counsell is, where were you when that whole news came down the pike?
Yeah, that's like it's gonna be one of those historical moments, right? Where were you when? No, I was sitting at home, just kind of scrolling through, and it was interesting because the news kind of broke in waves, right? It was like, okay, well, he's not going to New York. Oh, well, he's probably going back to Milwaukee. Wait, no, he's probably not going back to Milwaukee. Now he's going to a team that's already got a manager. Well, surely it can't be the Cubs. Oh, it was the Cubs. And it was like, huh? It was such a weird, it was a throwback, right? Because in the world of social media and interconnectedness, nothing's ever a secret anymore. Everything's always rumored until, then we finally get confirmation. Nobody knew this. It was done 24 hours before, 20 some hours, and then nobody knew outside the organization. So it's kind of weird, it's like going back to the days if you had to pick up the paper, or watch the news at night to see what was happening. And so it was kind of cool to see them pull this off that way.
Yeah, I was listening to some Milwaukee sports radio the first couple of days this week, and some of their fans called this a betrayal only because Craig Counsell goes from the Brewers to the Cubs. And even though, Evan, I'm a White Sox fan, we have our own issues, but that's a whole nother subject. But I kind of had to laugh a little bit because, Milwaukee, as I said before on the show, they're the National League version of the White Sox. The difference is they don't have any big names, but they have better players. But Milwaukee, they had their chances with Counsell in all these years, but they just couldn't get it done when they needed to be when they needed most in the playoffs. Describe to our audience Craig Counsell's managerial philosophy. What can the players on the current roster expect from him in starting next year?
Yeah, I think it is interesting. Before I get into that, it's kind of weird that the two Chicago sports teams this week have been in the news one way or the other for losing a very beloved figure from their organization to a division rival, right? Jason Bennetti going to Detroit, Craig Counsell come down to Chicago. At least those things balance out. But man, as much as I like Counsell and being a Cubs fan, it still stinks to have Bennetti out of town because that guy was awesome. The White Sox were terrible last year, and it was worth tuning into games just to listen to him. So big, huge shout out to him on his way out. But anyway, back to Counsell. I mean, you're looking at a guy who look, I don't want to knock David Ross too much, but it definitely also felt like he was purely a product of the roster he was given. There didn't seem to be too many instances in which Ross would make a bunch of those decisions that you felt like completely maximize the roster that he had. Whereas, Counsell has dealt with, at least on paper, rosters that aren't nearly good enough to win the number of games that they have, to make the playoffs as often as they have. And so, he's definitely a tactician, right? He understands the matchups very well, has managed, like the big thing that stands out about Milwaukee over the years has been their pitching staff and how strong that's been. Clearly that's largely about personnel, but I think he's done a really, really good job. When we saw they were out there out front, the Rays are really known for it, but the Brewers were up there in terms of riding their bullpen, right? Setting that up. Hey, just get your starter to go 5 innings, maybe 6. And again, it helps when you've got guys like Devin Williams and Josh Hader at the back of the bullpen for a big chunk of that. I know Hader hadn't been there the last couple of years, but no, I think he understands the strengths of his team really well, and not only how to set up a lineup, but how to kind of move or plan 2 or 3 moves ahead. And that's something I felt like, and maybe it's unfair, maybe it's revisionist history. I don't really think so, because I was saying it the whole time, but it felt at times that David Ross was much more reactive. I think Counsell is going to be a more proactive manager.
Yeah, it kind of makes you wonder, especially when you saw the Arizona win always the World Series, of course, losing to Texas, that I'm sure Cubs, I don't know how you felt about it, I'm sure a lot of Cubs fans were like, okay, crap, that could have been us, or I'm sorry, it could have been, but, those games against, the Rockies and against the Diamondbacks, I mean, those are type of games that kind of came back to bite you in the butt. Now, what is your kind of list of, that the Cubs should try to get, during this free agency period that we got coming up?
I mean, it varies, right? There's so many different, there's needs that they have. I still look at, and I don't, this isn't an exact comp, but I look at the Diamondbacks opponents in the World Series, right? The Texas Rangers. Look at the money that they went out and spent on superstar caliber, high level players. And I've done this a couple times, but I've compared that to Milwaukee. We look at the Brewers. They had a regular season, right? Not great, but certainly enough to win the division, get them into the postseason. But Brandon Woodruff, one of their top pitchers, has a capsular tear in his shoulder, a similar injury to what Kyle Hendricks suffered a while back that shelved him for a while. But that's not the only reason they got bounced out of the playoffs, but they lost a stud pitcher, and they were not able to overcome that because they're just not deep enough. The Rangers, they made a huge splash the previous offseason when they signed Jacob deGrom to a monster deal. He goes down early. They are able to not only overcome that and get into the playoffs, but still win and go all the way through and take the whole darn thing because they had enough other talent around him to make that work because they spent a bunch of money on it. Now, is that perfect? Is that going to work the same way for everybody? No. But I think we see the Cubs start trying to do some things like that. I think we see them go after another high-level pitcher, right? Starter, be that in trade or free agency, a guy who misses bats, throws with high velocity, which is something the rest of their rotation, they were one of the worst in baseball in terms of average fastball velocity and in terms of strikeouts. So they really need to add that. I think they continue to prioritize defense. We're going to see that up the middle. 2 Gold Glovers, right, at second and short. Ian Happ won another one. I'm a little surprised by that, but again, Pete Crow Armstrong, if he comes up, can fill that gap. But it's going to be largely about how they handle first base and third base. I don't know what that's going to look like right now, but I could see them kind of mixing and matching. Again, defense and power, I think, are 2 of their big priorities.
We're hanging out with the CubsInsider.com's Evan Altman, friend of the show, right here on Second City Sports, the Friday edition, right here on Sports Zone Chicago City. Lakina hanging out here with you. Speaking of free agency, Evan, Cody Bellinger, he's going to be one of the big names out there this winter. Do you see what percentage would you give on the chances with the Cubs bringing him back?
It's under 50%, in my opinion, at this point. I just – and I've said that, I believe, since Jed Hoyer's postseason press conference. I think if you'd asked me maybe a month before the end of the season, I thought the odds were a bit higher. I might have said 60, 70% that they retain him. But it just, as he continued, he slowed down a little bit toward the back end of the season. He got real hot coming out of the gate in the second half. And but I think with that pedigree that he's got, right, Rookie of the Year, MVP. Now you see him bounce back. We see the excellent defense at multiple positions. And the fact that he's right now, behind Ohtani, probably the number 2 free agent in the market. It's possible a team's going to overpay. The projections are all over the place, but the more it goes above $150 million, the less I see the Cubs really willing, knowing what he's got there. When I look at the numbers, right, on paper, everything looks good. You start digging into like the batted ball data is really scary to me. His hard hit percentage is very, very low. His average exit velocity is like 10th percentile in Major League Baseball. That concerns me about a guy who's getting into his late 20s. If you give him 6 years, you're talking about a guy who's in his mid 30s by the time it's done. If those home runs start turning into doubles, the value that he presents offensively drops off, and that does concern me a little bit. But I would say maybe like 30%, 33. Let's go 33 and a third. Let's just split it evenly, and say that's where I put the Cubs right now.
What do you think about the chance of some of the rumors are floating around about trading for guys like Pete Alonso? That trade rumors been around for a while. I know the Juan Soto trade talks have kind of picking up steam. Do you think the Cubs can get one or both of them? Would you want to get either one or both of them?
Yeah, I think Soto is probably more likely than Alonso. Just it sounds like the Mets have really prioritized getting an extension done with him. I mean, David Stearns, their president of baseball operations, who incidentally, he came from Milwaukee originally, and so it was a little bit surprising that there wasn't a reunion there with Counsell. But Stearns came out in his introductory press conference, said they want to keep Alonso around. I do think that's something that the Mets are going to try to get done. And I also think they're a little bit leery of kind of trading with the Cubs. I know leadership, again, it's a little bit different now, but they've been burned in the past, and they have been kind of reluctant to do that. Soto, on the other hand, with as much as San Diego right now is trying to spin this, right? Oh, well, we might hold on to him. There's a chance he'll stay around next year. Like, I don't really believe that's anything other than leverage on their part. We're talking about a team that clearly wants to shed payroll, that underperformed last year despite all the money they spent, reportedly had to take out a $50 million loan to make payroll. I think they've got to move him with just 1 year left on his contract. He's expected to make over $30 million in his last year of arbitration. They will not be able to get much of a haul for him, relatively speaking, right, for a player of Hall of Fame caliber. So I could see the Cubs being able to make something work on that front a lot more easily. And I think with where the Cubs are at right now, right, they're still transitioning a little bit. They're not one player away. And I know a lot of people think that you don't trade for a guy like that unless you extend him. I disagree with that completely, because he's not going to sign an extension. He's a Scott Boras client. He's not just going to move over and sign an extension right away before he knows what he can do and how much he can make. We saw that with Bellinger. I think the Cubs could swing that deal. It doesn't cost them a ton in terms of prospect capital. They can bring him in there. You get a year to kind of recruit him if you do want to sign this guy to a monster contract afterwards, if you think that's what makes sense. He's still super young, right? That's the other thing. People talk about, you can't give up Chris Morel for him. I understand Morel's under control. Soto's only 8 months older than Chris Morel, right? We think of Morel as being really young. Soto is incredibly young. He's just been in the league for 6 years because he came in when he was like 18, 19 years old. So that's the kind of guy I think that would be a real difference maker for him because of the power from the left side, the impeccable plate approach, everything else that he brings. And I think that's a risk that they'd be willing to make, even if it is for just 1 year.
Another name on the rumor mill has been Shohei Ohtani. He's going to be another big name that some teams will be coveting this offseason. Of course, the favorite is the Los Angeles Dodgers, followed by San Francisco, in my opinion, the Seattle Mariners. But the Shohei Ohtani to the Cubs rumor mill has started to pick up, especially after the announcement of Craig Counsell being named their new manager. Do you think Shohei Ohtani will be best fit for the team? We know that he's going to bring in the marketing dollars because of him playing in the city of Chicago and whatnot. But do you think that Shohei Ohtani really fits what the Cubs are trying to do going forward for next year?
Yeah, I mean, I think he certainly could. I mean, he would fit. Realistically, right? Like, what team wouldn't want a guy who's the best DH in the league, who is potentially a Cy Young caliber pitcher if he's able to come back from this, it's his second elbow surgery, so there is a little bit of trepidation, understandably, in kind of looking at, man, what are we getting from this? But I think what's really interesting, and I wrote a little bit about this morning based on a report that Patrick Mooney had in The Athletic. But if you look back, the Cubs were they were the only National League team outside of the West Coast that made kind of the final 7 teams when Ohtani first came over, right? The Cubs and the Rangers were the only teams not on the West Coast. And so the fact that he knew he needed to DH and still had the Cubs in his final grouping is, I think, not insignificant, right? The fact that there is now a DH in the National League, with the Cubs kind of just picking up Kyle Hendricks' option, Marcus Stroman opted out. I still think they go and find another pitcher, but depending on where that goes, say it's a Tyler Glass now that they trade for, who's only got 1 more year, right? They've got that room. They can fill that rotation for now. Spots open up again next year that he slides in. But the one, I'm just trying to like connect dots or maybe make little things up here or whatever. But it's really interesting. Like Ohtani's not a public figure, right? He does not do press conferences. He's not out there. His agents are really, really secretive, not secretive, but protective of him. He's not doing big press conferences, all that. I feel like the way Jed Hoyer went about the Craig Counsell signing and the organization went about it, nobody knew, nothing leaked. Everybody respected everyone's privacy and secrecy for that time, and nothing got out. I do feel like that's something that, it's not the one thing that's going to make the decision, but I think the way that the Cubs front office does business is something that would appeal to Ohtani and his representatives were it to come down to like a decision between 2 or 3 different teams.
Do you think if Ohtani, does sign with the Cubs, do you see him being, hitting, like you said, the DH in National League? Do you see him, DHing more, perhaps maybe pitching maybe more, especially with the second elbow, surgery? What do you think if again, hypothetically, if the Cubs do land Ohtani, where do you think it's going to be doing, more hitting than pitching, or it's going to be kind of like even like it's been the last few years with the Angels?
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of gone through this before, right? The last time it happened there early on in his Angels career where he got off to a slow start pitching wise because of the injury and basically missed, about a season and a half or so in there, and then certainly had the issues here. So, I mean, I think you're looking at next year certainly being hitting only, and then 2025, assuming everything goes well, and there's really no reason. I guess there's always reason to worry, but I'm more concerned with shoulders than elbows. Right, elbows anymore. That's like an ACL injury used to be a big thing, whether it be football or basketball, and now that's like no big deal, right? They know how to do it. They fix it. You come back. And I don't want to say a UCL tear, and this wasn't like a full tear of my understanding, not like a full Tommy John type deal. So I don't know if they did the internal brace surgery or what, but it's so commonplace that, even with it being the second one, it's not as if this is rare for someone to come back from. And if you look at a guy like this, right, he's a big dude. We're not talking about some small bodied pitcher who's got to really worry about that. He's got less mileage, fewer innings on him than a comparable pitcher of that age would, simply because in Japan, 6-man rotations, you're only pitching once a week. He's had the injuries. So I would imagine that by 25, he returns to a regular workload and is deployed similarly to what we've seen with the Angels moving forward. So a majority of whatever contract this is, hopefully he'll be able to do both.
We're heading down the home stretch with our guy, Evan Altman from CubsInsider.com. He's hanging out with us here on the Friday edition of Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Say Lakina here with you. Evan, assuming that the Cubs, we know they're going to make some changes, some additions to their bullpen this offseason. Assuming they don't get a closer, I assume that you're a very confident Abel Azalai being your closer for next year, even though he was injured toward the end of the season. I assume that you're okay with that, or do you think the Cubs need to slightly upgrade as far as getting a closer?
Yeah, I mean, I like what he was able to do. I think the key there is just to make sure they've got enough of the setup men in place that, hey, if you got to give him a break every now and again, maybe a little bit more. And really, I mean, he didn't get into that role until a couple months into the season. They had to kind of experiment with a few guys, right? Figure that out. But he's just such a fiery, like he's so quiet and humble off the mound. It's just really funny when you talk to him. He's just very soft spoken, fun loving kind of a guy, but super quiet. And then you see him on the mound, right? He's got that kind, and that's kind of what you like in those closers, right? It's that to be kind of trite with, like, he's a dog, right, out there, but like the nicest, right? Everything's cool and he's totally chill when he's around family. But if there's somebody he doesn't recognize, right, you see the hackles get up, you see that dog kind of bare his teeth. Alzolai's like that, man. He is fired up, and I think his personality fits that so well because he gets up for those big moments, and then can kind of. I'm sure it probably takes him a while to get to sleep once he's done with those games, but yeah, it's the attitude does it for me. I love it. I just think they need to make sure they back him up with plenty of help as far as setup men in the 7th and 8th.
Yeah, definitely needs help there. Now let's talk about another pitcher, a starting pitcher, Justin Steele. He did not make the list for NL Cy Young. I'm still a little miffed about that. I know he had a bad, couple of games, but it's just, I kind of felt like he was sort of. I know Logan Wells, the Giants, he was able to sneak in there to get that last spot with Blake Snell and Zach Gallen. But what do you think? Do you think Steele deserved to get that final spot in that as a finalist?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think so, especially with him just kind of, I think the story is pretty cool, right? With somebody kind of not really coming out of nowhere, but I mean, even in the Cubs system when he was coming up, he wasn't even considered the best left-handed pitcher because they had Braylon Marquez at the same time, right? Steele was kind of an afterthought, a lot of injuries coming up. So for him to kind of burst on the scene and take that ace role, I thought so. But at the same time, it's kind of like one of those deals where, it's Larry Bird in a 3-point contest, right? Who's playing for second? Because Blake Snell is going to walk away with this thing. So it's like, you can put him in the top 3, but it's just how far behind does he finish? So I don't feel too bad about it. Hopefully, hey, at the end of the day, probably a better thing, right? Put a chip on his shoulder, let him go into spring training looking to be even better next year, and I think he will be.
This guy had a better second half, in my opinion, after he had got out to another slow start this year, as Seiya Suzuki. What's the ceiling, in your opinion, for him, assuming he does get moved this offseason going into 2024?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's tough to look at it and say that what he did in the second half is what he can do for a full season because, I mean, he just performed so well. But I think we saw a guy who, for that first half, was pressing for a lot of it, right? And David Ross sat him down. This is one of the things, I kind of criticized Ross earlier, but I will give him a big compliment in that I think the way he handled, say, Suzuki was done as well as any manager possibly could have. Sat him down and let him know why. And I think the whole thing behind that, right, was that he got a different perspective on things. He slowed down a little bit. He realized how fun the game is again, and realized how much he wanted to be out there and having fun playing versus just trying to make things happen. And we saw a more aggressive hitter up there. He wasn't letting pitchers kind of dictate the pace for him. And we saw the power come back. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's easily got 30 home run power. He's got speed. He can play solid defense. I mean, he can be a legit everyday middle of the order hitter. And I think that we see that in his third year, provided he can remain healthy. That's always a question for anybody, right? He's had some little nagging injuries here and there. But I think that third year, I think this is where we see him kind of truly establish himself after the hot second half.
Last Moto 2 with Cubs insiders Evan Altman here on Second City Sports on Chicago. Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown with you now. I know it's way too early because we haven't had free agency and such, but what do you think? Depending on what moves the Cubs make, to me, I think the Counsell move, shows that they are going to spend. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and Jed Hoyer kind of cautioned a little bit, hey, we're not going to try to go out there and go wild. But he also said at the same time, right, we're not ruling out any big moves if they make us better. And, when you look at Milwaukee, not only losing Counsell, but possibly looking to trade anything that's not nailed down, they may be going through a little bit of a rebuild. The Reds certainly aren't in a position to jump up, I don't think. The Pirates don't look like they're ready to take that step. The Cardinals had a really down season. They've got a lot of transitional stuff going on. There's nothing to say the Cubs can't jump up, but at the same time, I don't think, and I mentioned this earlier, I don't think they're taking the Rangers step of, signing 2 or 3 guys to $200+ million deals or anything like that, at least not right now. But I could see if the right deal comes along, they get that one big one. I think they still look at a couple of kind of transitional pieces for those maybe 1 or 2 year deals of guys to fill some spots. But, you know, like you said, signing Counsell, doing that, making him the highest paid manager in baseball, it means two things. A, they are intent on winning, but B, they guaranteed him 5 years. So they don't need to go out and try to do everything possible to win next year. They can build this with him, and they expect to be more consistently competitive. So I think we will see them build toward that. So over the next 2 to 3 years is when they're going to really hopefully get after it in a big way.
Last question for me, Evan. Of course, this is the 50th year of the music genre we call hip hop, and I believe earlier this week this was the 30th anniversary of the album that came out from one of the most influential groups in hip hop history. In my opinion, I appreciate them more now. Me and Lakina, I think all three of us are around the same age, and that's the Wu-Tang Clan, the 36 Chambers. I've heard you in other interviews. I know you have a real bigger appreciation of this group because all those artists have went on to do successful projects within their solo careers. Talk to us about the Wu-Tang Clan. How did you get started listening to their music and your bigger appreciation for one of the most influential groups in hip hop history?
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. November 9th, the 30th anniversary of both Enter the Wu-Tang and Midnight Marauders. So you know, just what a phenomenal day, right? So it started, it was like back in the day when you could, I can't remember if it was Columbia House or like BMG Music or whatever one it was. You get your 12 CDs for a penny and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Right. And so,
oh gosh.
Right. Like, and then, you know, you're a kid, like, you're like 12 years old. Like, how's a 12-year-old supposed to be responsible for doing this stuff? But like the first, so I got into hip hop kind of early. And the first cassette tape that I recall, at least, that I bought with my own money, which one was that? That was, it was Public Enemy, but it wasn't Fear of a Black Planet. So would it have been Apocalypse 91, The Enemy Strikes Black? I think that was maybe I'm messing some of that. Anyway, it was like their follow-up, right, to Fear of a Black Planet. So anyway, so I'm like, okay, this is cool. What else is like that, right? What else can I find? Because I grew up in this small town, Northwest Indiana. There's no record stores around. Nobody's, you know, it's mostly like country and that sort of thing. So how can I find this? So I looked through and I checked off a couple boxes. And at the time it happened to be, you know, so I got that. I think I got Raekwon's Only Built for Cuban Links a couple years later. I got the Chronic in there with that, you know, so but I kind of started listening to it and I didn't get into it as much for maybe like another year or so. And I was just hearing it, like they're making up words. The beat, I mean, it literally was, but it sounded like it was made in somebody's basement, which it kind of, you know, and I just dug that whole thing and it just stuck with me so much. And it's been really cool. I've been able to see him in concert a few times. I've been able to take my son, you know, he's 15 now, and got him into it. We got to see them in concert, and we actually even traveled recently to Cleveland, and we went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which has the exhibit right now, the 50 years of hip hop. We saw LL Cool J, Common, Jadakiss, MC Lyte, Method Man, Redman, like those like the, you know, spanning a huge chunk of that 50 years, right? And it's just been really cool. So it's something that gave me a view into a world that I otherwise would never have been able to know anything about. I certainly didn't experience that firsthand, but it just felt so raw and so real to me, and it continues to kind of have that resonance with me, you know, 30 years later.
Nice. Oh, I love that. One of my favorite albums of all time. So Evan, you know, thank you so much for joining us as usual. We can't, you know, it has to be like 2 years since we had you on. So let's not make this wait another 2 years before we have you back. Okay, so where people can find you, all of your great work, podcasts, and all that other good stuff.
Yeah, so you can check us out. So CubsInsider.com. You can find me on X at Evan Altman, or you can just search at Real Cubs Insider. You can find us on Facebook, Cubs Insider. You can go on YouTube, search Cubs Insider. We got some stuff on there too. And yeah, so try to be all over the place as much as possible. And, you know, hey, this time of year is busier in the off season than it is when they're actually playing baseball. So be sure to keep checking back for any updates we got.
Yeah, this off season should be nothing short but eventful and interesting. So we are all going to be watching to see what happens. Evan, as always, thank you so much for joining us today on Second City Sports. Great insight on the Cubs. Much continued success, and we'll definitely have you on again when news breaks for the North Siders. So keep up the great work, and we'll have you on again soon.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Evan.
All right,
Bye.
Take care.
Stay safe. All right, that was Cubs insiders Evan Altman here on Second City Sports on Sports in Chicago. Well, so unfortunately, our girl Christine Maddox from KXRB has been having trouble, coming on because remember she's on the road this week. She's not, at home, so she's having a little, the reception's a little bit spotty. But I do have her picks just in case. So, we'll have our week 10 picks. So also a whole lot more some sports media news. Of course, we talked as Evan alluded to earlier. Jason Bennetti leaves the White Sox to go to the Tigers. We'll both have thoughts on that. And ABC7 names their new main sports anchor. Wonder who it is. Okay.
Right.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, there's she. Well, yeah. So we'll try to get Christine on with us. Second City Sports will try to Lakina McGee, City Brown. Our picks coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class. These colored pencils, too. These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
All right, welcome back to Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago. Like Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown with you. You can follow me at Lakina McGee on the Twitter, X, and KXRB on IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. This is our last segment of the show for the week and for today and for the week. So make those questions and comments great. And for those last fourth quarter comments and questions, go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comment section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you.
I think we got her on. So I know the reception and the connection she has is pretty spotty. So we'll try this a couple of times, and if not, we got her picks already. So our girl, your girl, the wonderful Miss Christine, the Queen Manica, Christine.
Yay!
Can you hear us? Or no, or maybe not. Or maybe not. All right, so we'll see if we can kind of get her connection going. I know it's going to be an issue, but the good news is I actually do have her picks, so no worries there. We actually did okay. Sid, you had 9. Christy and I both had 8, so we both.
Okay.
Nothing really has changed in the leaderboard, so you're still a couple games up on Christine. You're 3 games up, on me. So still a lot to kind of be decided here. We're like halfway through the season now.
It's been a crazy year in the NFL for picking games, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's been very tough. Exactly. So, of course, you got the Chiefs, the Rams, the Dolphins, and the Eagles are on bye. So adjust your fantasy leagues accordingly. So if you have, Pat Mahomes or Jalen Hurts or Tua, please adjust your fantasy teams accordingly.
Tyreek Hill, get him out.
Tyreek, yeah, let's say adjust your team accordingly. So, so I know you had to make some adjustments there, Sid.
Yes.
So, all right, so let's get right to it. Let's go back to Frankfurt, Germany. Now, this game, I don't know. This might be unlike the other game. I know the Chiefs, kind of handled offense pretty well, but in this case, it may not be the case here. You got the Colts and the Patriots. They'll be at 8:30 on the NFL Network. So, Sid, you start this one for us, please.
The Indianapolis Colts are 2.5-point favorites. I know this is technically a home game for New England. Indianapolis, I know they had a big win at Carolina last week thanks to their defense. New England, they've been up and down so far this year, 2-7, mostly down. I think this game might surprise us, Lakina. We expect it to be a terrible game. This game might surprise us because those games overseas, even though we haven't seen it so far this year, it tends to surprise us outside of Jacksonville beating Buffalo. It tends to be high scoring and a couple of turning point plays here and there. But I'm going with the better team here. I'm going with the Colts.
Yeah, I mean, look, these games have always been very weird when you thought that maybe one team would blow out the other. It turns out not to be the case. And then last week, with the Chiefs and the Dolphins, you thought it was going to be close, but unfortunately, that wasn't the case there. So, but yeah, I'm going to go with the better team here. I know the Colts. I know that they've been kicking themselves after some, pretty bad, not bad losses per se, but kind of like lost. They're kicking themselves with some of those losses. So. And the Patriots, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know, but we might be seeing the end of an era here, and the end of an era on the coaching side for Mr. Belichick. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I'll pick the Colts too, and our girl Christine has the Colts as well. So good start there. We all agree there. Now this should be a very intriguing game here. In the AFC North, you've got the 5-3 Browns against the 7-2 Ravens. I'll start this one. I know that Deshaun Watson is looking really good. He looked okay last week. Had made a couple mistakes, and the Ravens are kind of getting it going. We just see how that offense goes up against the Browns defense. With Myles Garrett, I know he's going to be chasing after Lamar Jackson. This could be one of those these games that they usually turn out when these two teams play. Maybe it'll be like one of those 12-10 or something. It could be come down to a Justin Tucker field goal probably. So I might regret this later, but I'm picking the Ravens just because I trust a little bit better, their offense a little bit better than I do the Browns.
Yeah, the Browns really got back on track last week thanks to their defense, and they had a little bit of offense to go with it as they shut out the Arizona Cardinals 27-0. Deshaun Watson, I know he doesn't look the same. Even though he did play a little bit better last week, but he's got to bring his game up to another level against obviously a better team and a better defense with the Baltimore Ravens. On the flip side for Baltimore, Mark Andrews could have a good game. Their big receiver from the tight end position. Lamar Jackson has been playing very well this year. He hasn't had any injuries, so you see what the potential of this Baltimore offense can be. With that being said, Baltimore 6.5-point favorites at home. I'm going with Baltimore. I think Cleveland will cover only because of their defense, but we pick up straight up winners on this show. I'm going with Baltimore because they're at home. Even though Cleveland has beaten Baltimore there a couple of times over the last few years, I don't have the official stats in front of me, but it's not impossible for Cleveland to win there. It really isn't, but I'm going with Baltimore by a field goal.
Yeah, like you said, I think they've won there before a couple of times, so it's not like they haven't won. They don't know how to win there. That's gonna be a very tough place. That place is gonna be rocking. So, but I think that the Ravens. I would be surprised if the Browns cover, but our girl Christine agrees. She also has the Ravens, so it might be interesting. Could be come down to a wire here. So, we'll see what happens there. Now, next up on the docket, you got the Texans and the Bengals. The Bengals have been a little bit on a roll. You got C.J. Stroud, breaking, going near passing records kind of left and right. That Baltimore, of course, it looks like T. Higgins is out. So, and I know Jamar Chase is battling a back injury. So, if two of Joe Murray Burrow, as our girl Christine calls him, is it 100%? Yeah, I mean, if he's not 100%, that could be a problem for them, for the Bengals, I should say. This could be one of those things where, I could pull the trigger, but I'm not going to do that. I think the Texans will cover, but I think the Bengals will do just enough to win this game. I'm picking the Bengals.
Cincinnati's a 6.5-point home favorite. I guarantee you this, Houston will not score 39 points this week, unlike last week. And number 2, C.J. Stroud is going to get a better taste of a better defense with facing that Cincinnati Bengals defense. But regardless of the injuries to the wide receiver core for Cincinnati, they need to get Joe Mixon more involved in the offense. You start to see them do that within the last few weeks. This needs to be a big day for him and for that Cincinnati offense. So for that alone, I'm going with the Bengals.
And our girl Christine agrees. She also has the Bengals. So, that might be, like I said, I think the Tigers will cover, but I think the Bengals will end up winning this game. Now, next up on the docket here, remember, Fox has the doubleheader this week. This is the first game of that. You'll have the 49ers and the Jags. 49ers come off a bye. Sid, you start this one.
And I'll be watching this game via this computer screen this entirety. Yay! Because another alternate game will be airing here in Chicago for that first game. We'll get to that in a moment. But the Jaguars are coming off a bye. I think so are the 49ers, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So both these teams should be fresh and healthy, ready to go. Deebo Samuel should be returning to the 49ers lineup. I have him on fantasy team, so he better do well. On the flip side, Jacksonville's quarterback Trevor Lawrence must play better. I have him on fantasy team, so he better do well. Travis Etienne has been the MVP of that Jaguars offense so far this year, along with Calvin Ridley, even though he slipped up the last couple of games. But Jaguars are 3-point underdogs at home. I know the 49ers defense has been slapped in the face over the last 3 weeks. I benched them this week on my fantasy team, so we watch they'll come out with a performance of their lives. But I think it's going to be a close one here. The 49ers, they're not there like they have been in the last couple of years. Jacksonville, sneakily, quietly, one of the best teams in the AFC, is going to be a dogfight, but I'm going to pull the trigger. I'm going with Jacksonville.
I would be surprised if they do that, like you said, the way they've been playing lately. Of course, we don't know if Trent Williams might not play. I know he's been limited in practice. Deebo has been cleared, so that's a good thing. That they really need him on that offense. I don't know what to think about the Jaguars. I mean, just we thought that maybe the Jaguars started to figure it out. They end up doing something really silly and having a bad loss and such. So I really don't think they're right. I think the 49ers said that bye week, that I know the Jags were on bye week, but I think the 49ers that bye week is just what they needed. So to heal up and kind of get their game right. Hopefully Brock Purdy can be the Brock Purdy we saw earlier this season and late last season. I think the 49ers, I mean, they're going cross country, but they've been off for a week, so you got to think that they want to itch into play. So I think the 49ers, I think Jacksonville will cover, though. And Christine agrees she also has the 49ers. So we'll see what happens. Now, that game you're talking about is going to be here in Chicago on Fox. It'll be this one that we're going to be talking about. You got the Saints and the Vikings. Now, right, I mean, the 5-4, both are 5-4, and I feel like, and I feel like, you don't know which team you're going to get on both fronts. You'll have Josh Dobbs have a full week of practice. It's going to be a first home game as a Viking. The Saints, they play okay on the road, but they have a better road record than they do home record. I think because they're at home, I pick the Vikings. I think they'll do just enough on the defense side, especially to make plays to win this game. So I pick the Vikings.
This is going to be a true test for the Minnesota Vikings. They're coming home after pulling out a late road win at Atlanta last week. Josh Dobbs will get his first start. He's going to be in front of a Rockets crowd up there in Minneapolis. You mentioned about the Saints. They should have blown out the Bears last week if they had a little bit more offensive talent. But The Saints are favored by 3 points here as of this live broadcast. It's definitely going to be a close one. I know Justin Jefferson will not return before the Vikings. Just make it know that for you fantasy football owners. But I think for that alone, I'm going with the Saints.
All right. Okay. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, look, like I said, these games are pretty tough to pick this week. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the Saints, pull it off in Mini, and they're indoors, so that won't be a problem. Our girl Christine has the Vikings, so we're in agreement so far. So
you guys were right last week.
Yeah, I know. Go figure. That I pulled.
And Josh had to come off the bench.
Yeah, I didn't have that. I think Chrissy and I both didn't have that part coming in, so it'll be interesting. All right, CBS, and I believe this game will be airing at the same time, if I'm not mistaken, as this game.
Let me check.
Yeah, you check that. Packers and Steelers, two historic franchises playing against each other. I wish that both these teams were a little bit better, especially back in those days when they were playing each other very much. But the Steelers, I think they're coming off a bye too, and I think of course the Packers come off a big win against the Rams. Kenny Pickett, he started to get a little bit better. The defense, the Pickens, George Pickens, combo has been very solid for them so far. I think the Steelers will I think they're kind of going to roll right now. I'm going to pick the Steelers. I think the Steelers are kind of like, their defense has been very good. And, I think, Cam Hayward, I think he's going to play this week for the first time this season. So I think that might help that defense a bit as well. So I'll pick the Steelers.
I'm going to wait till the midnight hour. Oh, I'm sorry. That's Wilson picking my bad. Bassett back. Oh, in all seriousness, this game will be airing live here in Chicago on CBS2. The Steelers are 3.5-point favorites at home. Like you said, the Steelers are coming off the bye week. The Packers, much needed win last week against a bad LA Rams team. One of Christine's guys, she loves to quote unquote hate. They picked up Carson Wentz following the game, talking about the Rams.
Too bad. I know she would have.
I don't think you'll see the Josh Dobbs encore from Mr. Wentz this week. So, this week for the Rams, we'll get into more of them later. But as far as this game is concerned, the Packers are running to a better team that's playing better right now, as you mentioned. Kenny Pickett must play a better game. Like you say, he's been doing that over the last couple of weeks. So I'm going with the Steelers because they're at home and they're a slightly better team.
Yeah, I agree. And Christine has the Steelers as well. So, we're in agreement on that, too. This should be intriguing on here. A couple of the AFC South versus the NFC. So, you got Titans and Bucks. I mean, the Bucks come off that heartbreaker against, Houston. The Titans, they've had their issues, too. So, this could be one of those ugly games. I don't know why.
It will be.
Yeah, it might. And I don't know why. I guess because they're at home, I'm picking the Bucks. I don't know.
Me too, even though Will Levis did play well, has been playing well ever since he's been the starter for the Texans.
And our girl Christine, I know we had a first disagreement. She has the Titans. I mean, I
wouldn't be surprised. Like you said, this is a clearly toss-up game. Normally, a home favorite would get 3 points if they were fully the favorite. The Buccaneers, you mentioned, they're only a point favorite. So Vegas is telling you this is a toss-up game, and rightfully so.
Very rightfully. Okay, first of the 3 o'clock games, our buddy Spiro Diaz will have the call of this game for CBS at 3:05. I'm going to try to watch this game. More support to him, not really, for the game itself. The Falcons, true. I mean, the Falcons coming off that loss against Minnesota. They go on the road against the 1-8 Cardinals, and the return of Kyler Murray. And this could be one of those Battle of the Birds. This could be another one of those ugly games. So. Good grief. I mean, I know Murray's going to be a little bit rusty, so I'm not. This could be another one of those like 6'3", 9'6". So, Spiro and Adam Archuleta might have a tough one to call here, but I'll pick the Falcons. I'm sure they're going to want to have this. Might be a get-right game for them. I'll pick the Falcons.
Yeah, I agree with you. The Falcons are 2-point road favorites. I'm going with the Falcons.
And so is our girl Christine. She also has the Falcons. So, we're in agreement there. Now, the next game on here, there's another CBS game. I might watch this game. This might be a little bit better game here. You got the Lions and the Chargers. So you start You start, Sid.
Detroit are 3-point favorites on the road. Of course, they're coming off a bye. Of course, the Chargers, they won last Monday night against the New York Jets on the road. They gave me, it's talking about the Chargers defense, gave me 30 points in my fantasy, even though I lost a close one. But I digress. But Detroit, They're coming up fresh, as I mentioned, off a bye. I think they get David Montgomery back, the former Bears running back. I want to say the Chargers have a chance. They do, but I just don't trust them. For that reason alone, I'm going with Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those, okay, yeah, they're traveling cross country, but they are playing a 3:00 game, so it shouldn't be that big of an issue for them.
Right, that's not going to be a factor.
Yeah, I think the Lions too. I mean, they're a little bit better. I know they're playing at home. I'll talk about the Chargers after a short week, so but the Lions are a little bit better. So I think they want to put as much distance between the other teams than NFC North as possible. So I'm picking the Lions, and so is our girl Christine. She also has the Lions. Watch Justin Herbert throw for like 4 touchdowns and they end up winning it. So you know that's probably what's going to happen. NFC East. I mean, I'm sure this was a better matchup initially when they made the schedule. You got the one of America's games of the week, I guess. You got the Giants and the Cowboys. I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, I know the Cowboys are going to want to bounce back. They lost to the Eagles, the Giants. Good grief. The Cowboys. I'll keep it short and sweet. I'll pick the Cowboys.
Yeah, I think Tommy DeVito, the former Fighting Illini quarterback, will get his first start because Daniel Jones is out for the year. Yeah, the Cowboys are 17-point favorites. I'm going with the Cowboys, and I have their defense starting on my fantasy team, so they better come up big.
You'll be getting on them too Monday. So yeah, please, please defense for the Cowboys. Yeah, our girl Christine agrees. She has the Cowboys as well. And the other game of the week at the 3:25 slate for Fox, might be a little bit better. You got the Commanders and the Seahawks. You start this one, Sid.
Seattle is 6. They're 6-point favorites at home. Of course, Washington traded the majority of their defensive line the last couple of weeks at the trade deadline. The Seattle, they're the best team in the NFC West by a couple of games, by a game over San Francisco. They're at home. They should not take the Commanders lightly because Ron Rivera is the coach on the other side. But I think Pete Carroll has his team rolling right now, so I'm going with Seattle.
Yeah, I think Seattle will win this. They should win it pretty handily. I mean, Washington. You don't know how. They actually looked okay last week, despite not having trading Montez Sweat and Chase Young, but. Seattle is getting a little bit better. They're on the roll right now. I'm picking the Seahawks, and our girl Christine agrees. She got the Seahawks as well. And two historic franchises will be facing each other on Sunday night. I mean, this might be a better game than the one last week. You got the Jets and the Raiders. The Raiders, you feel like there's more of a better energy. You feel a little more positivity. You see Devontae Adams, playing darts. He's in his happy places while he's on the football field. I know the Jets have been kind of, you don't know what you're gonna get for the Jets. Jeez, I might regret this Monday when we talked about this, Sid, but I'll pick the Raiders.
Las Vegas is 1-point favorites according to the bookies, legal bookies in Las Vegas. Of course, we talked about the Raiders smashing the Giants last week. The Jets getting smashed by the Chargers at home on Monday night. Usually, when teams get demoralized on national TV, they usually come back and play better the next week. I expect a better performance for the Jets, but I'm going with the Raiders too, Lakina. And maybe instead of them celebrating in the locker room, maybe they'll do the Casper slide at the 50-yard line after they win the game. I don't know. I'm going with the Raiders.
R.I.P. to Mr. Casper.
Yes. Chicago's very own.
Yes, our girl Chrissy also agrees. She also has the Raiders, so we'll see.
We agree too damn much.
I know, but we may disagree here. You never know on this Monday night. You got the Broncos and the Bills. This will air on ABC, ESPN, Manning-Cast on ESPN2, so I'll make you happy. Also ESPN. Yeah, ESPN Deportes. I just want to see Payne do more like weird dance moves. I don't know what he's doing with some of the dance moves. I don't get it. But I mean, the Bills. I mean, God. I mean, are we going to have that conversation about the Bills at this point? I feel like this is one of those things where the Broncos travel concentrated, but it's going to be on a Monday, so that won't matter. The Bills, God. I mean, they've just been. I don't know what to think about the Bills anymore. I think the Broncos will cover, but I think, Josh Allen will have a bounce back game, and I think the Bills will win. The only reason I pick the Bills is that they're at home. That's the only reason. I had no other reason just because of that.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Remember, Buffalo's defense has been struggling to get consistent pressure on the quarterback. I know they had key injuries to a couple of their players. Denver, I think, were they off last week? I believe they were.
Yes, Yes,
They were all, yeah. So they'll be coming in fresh, and hopefully Russell Wilson will not turn the ball over for the Denver Broncos. Not New England. Buffalo's favored by 7 points at home. Why are they giving 7 at home? I don't know, but I'm with you. The Broncos will cover, but Buffalo will win a close one.
All right, so a lot of toss-up games this week, and as your schedule for this week.
Did Christine pick?
The Bills. I forgot the Bills. She picked the Bills. So yes, we agree on that. So gonna be very interesting. We'll see what happens with some of these games. That's your schedule for this week in the NFL Week 10. As soon as I can see sports on Sports on Chicago, Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown with you now. All right, so let's start this. Let's start this thing, real quick. Of course, Liam Hendriks, he won Comeback Player of the Year for the White Sox, but unfortunately did not pick up his option, obviously. And Christine wants everybody to know that, she feels the same way about. We'll talk about Jason Bennetti in a second, after the Tommy John surgery. So he's got to get healthy and whatnot. So that's going to be interesting. We talked about that on Monday. And she also said about Jason Bennetti, she said that they're stupid for letting him just leave. They should have paid him. He's a heart of that organization, inspiration for everybody. If you heard his Benetti's presser with Detroit on Bally Sports Detroit yesterday, he kind of played off the underdog. Of course, he has cerebral palsy and all that, and he kind of made it known that the Sox really didn't treat him very well. So, and we've seen this happen before. Like I said, our buddy Spiro Diaz went through this, twice with both Knicks and the Lakers. So, what do you think? I mean, I'm surprised. When I saw this news early yesterday morning, I was literally my jaw just dropped.
Same here. I know he replaced the legend in Hawk Harrelson back in 2016. Like most people, when change happens, you don't receive it very well. You don't accept it very well, or you're not accepting of it right away. But I grew to love him as Stoney. I was like, okay, he has a place here, and I grew to respect him and respect his work, of course, with Stoney on the broadcast, especially in 2021 when the White Sox were winning consistently. Of course, they won the AL Central that year. But him and Stoney, it took time, but they developed a great rapport. And I heard some stuff on Thursday, too, as the news went down. And of course, I listened to Lawrence Holmes and Dan Bernstein in 670 Score here in Chicago. I thought Lawrence Holmes put it perfectly. I put out a tweet, and part of his comment was that, I think Bernstein said this, I'm just paraphrasing here. When your own, who grew up in Chicago, in the South Side, the South suburbs, he lives out his dream of becoming a play-by-play announcer, and he works for you, the team that he loves the most and he rooted for. Now he's calling your games. You can't treat them right. The Sox deserve what they got. And Jason Bennetti, I didn't know this too until later, that he has a background of being a lawyer. So, and we talked about this last year too, Lakina, about him getting more national stuff when he was doing it with ESPN. Of course, now he's with Fox, going on year number 2, I believe. So, and his profile keeps growing. The White Sox have to realize, I get it from a business perspective. You want him to do the majority of your games because that's who's paying him the most.
Right.
But whenever he does a national broadcast, whether it's college football, college basketball, what's his main job? He's the announcer then of the Chicago White Sox. That ups your profile, and the White Sox just don't understand that, and it's really a shame. But Jason Bennetti, and it's a lesson to all of us. I don't know what kind of line of work you do, but know your work, trust in your abilities, and hopefully go to a place where people can respect you first and celebrate you second. And that's what Jason Bennetti did. Congrats to him. I'll be watching a few more Tigers games this year. The hell with the team, but I'm supporting him. Let me repeat that one more again, as the kids would say. The hell with the Tigers, but I'm supporting Jason.
Yeah, I mean, look, he has a great dry humor. You show, you guys, I'm sure you guys in Detroit, please treat him well. We love him here. And like you said, Sid, I mean, look, the main job is, look, we'll see look at Buscemi's deal with the Cubs. I mean, yes, he's gonna do about 90% of the Cubs games, but he's gonna have national stuff, of course, doing Sunday Night Baseball on the radio side. They, of course, you guys, he does some college hoops still for ESPN on the side as well. But he's still gonna get his shots and and his little breaks every now and then. And unfortunately, look, that's all Jason wanted was a similar contract that he has with the Cubs. So with the White Sox, I should say. So yeah, for me, this is a big loss for the organization. I was totally with Lawrence on this with his comments. Like you let a guy that was a big fan of your team, grew up on the South suburbs, had everything else, but yet, of course, he didn't want to accommodate him for his because he had stuff with Fox, going doing college football. I'm sure we're doing a lot of college hoops, this for this season. He has what's going on right now. So this is a big loss for them and that organization. And once again, this organization drops the ball. So good luck in Detroit at Valley Sports. Detroit, Jason, and we'll be just see who the Sox get. I know Mike Monaco, who just had a new deal with ESPN. His name's apparently he's leading candidate. I actually like him. He actually does a nice. We'll wait to see if they I'm sure the requirement is going to be who's going to have a nice rapport with Steve Stone. Like you said, it took a little time, but he and Jason were able to kind of figure things out there, and it'll be interesting. And he actually did a couple of those games. I'm talking about Mike with Stoney, so it'll be interesting to see if that dynamic. Will they continue on that? Will they bring someone totally new? We'll have to wait and see.
And what some of these teams are doing with the four major sports, they have announcers are doing 50 games. The other play-by-play men doing another 60 or 70 games. We're talking about baseball here. It looks like the Sox will not do that. So we'll see what happens. I know, like you mentioned, Mike Monaco, he's been filling in for the last 3 years. I know some people say Adam Amin, but he's doing national stuff with Fox. I don't know if they're even going to consider him. He does a great job with Stacey King with the Bulls, but I don't know if Adam Amin will do it. Remember, if you know the story real quick, that he was supposed to he was up for the White Sox job when Hawk Harrison retired, and Jason Bennetti was going to go with the Bulls, but fate have it switched. I know Adam Amin told the story. I forgot whose podcast he was on. Hopefully we can get him on here in the near future. But, it all worked out. Adam Amin wanted the Sox job. He didn't get Jason Bennetti. He got, of course, Adam Amin ended up getting the Bulls job a couple years later. And you see what he's doing right now. But I know Connor Knight's name's been floated around because he's the pre- and post-game host of the White Sox on ESPN 1000. And he's filled in over the last 2 seasons calling games on TV. So we'll see what happens. Will they think outside the box and bring in someone new? I think what the criteria is going to be, Lakina, very limited or no national work. That's what it sounds like. The vibes that I'm picking up.
Yep.
I think that's going to be the main criteria. But like I said, Mike Monaco, he resigned to ESPN. He does college baseball too. So
yep, he does.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, I mean like I said, they may just bring on somebody new, and I think I know Connor McKnight, his name's been floating around, but I think would he want to do a TV side? I mean, he's a very good-looking guy, so he does have a face for television, but I don't know, would he want to do that? Does he like his gig with ESPN doing 1000, doing the pre and post for the White Sox? I don't know, and I think another reason too is that you can't critique what's going on in the White Sox, and I think a lot of that's why. Benetti, I think that was another reason why Benetti left, because I'm sure he got a lot of notes from the Sox that he can't criticize the team. I mean, what else is he going to do? The team was terrible. So, what do you want him to say?
You cannot put a lipstick on a pig all the time, especially in the city of Chicago. You cannot fool us fans and critics. That's not going to go over well. You'll hear it, and you'll hear from the fans immediately.
Absolutely. So, like you said, I mean, look, like you said, Mike Monaco just signed a new deal at ESPN, like we talked about. So, Adam Amin has even more national stuff than just as much national stuff as Jason, so you're gonna have that same problem. I think exactly. Same with Mike Monaco as well. Like you said, he does college baseball and does it really well, especially at the peak of that season. So that might be a problem. So I can see them bringing somebody totally new, which I wouldn't be surprised if they do that. I know Rain Randazzo's name's been floating around. He now does stuff with the Mets.
He just did the Angels this year, and plus he does Friday Night Baseball. So good luck.
Yeah. That's gonna be a problem. So we'll see. It's gonna be interesting.
Unless I don't bring him back, he's still gonna do that. So, like I said, good luck.
They have a lot of issues here, all the names you mentioned. So they may have to bring on somebody new. So we'll see what happens. Now, on the flip side, there was some happy news on the sports media side. Ryan Chiaverini has been named the main sports anchor for ABC7 Chicago. They made the announcement last night during the 6 o'clock telecast. Of course, he did it on the weekends for like 5 years before he went to Wednesday Live. Did that for about 11 years. Went back to doing it after the show ended. So now, didn't really skip a beat. So now he's back with the main job and very deserving of this promotion.
Yes, congratulations to Mr. Chiaverini for being named the main sports anchor. Of course, he still looks decent for his age. I know it's a slight hate, but I'm a nice hater. But like I say, he's done great work. He's been here for, I can't believe we're going on 16, 17 years.
Crazy.
And so I think he's around our age, looking at just a couple of years.
A couple years older,
years.
yeah. I know he and his brother, his twin brother Darren, they just turned like 44, I think. So yeah, they're about a couple years older.
So he's around our age, so he's doing great work, and this was not a surprise here. Like I say, I heard him in the interview that even though he was doing Windy City Life, he still obviously kept up with the sports thing. He wanted to get back into sports, and for him, thank goodness he's getting back to doing what he loves to do. Of course, you still have our friends of the show, Deion Miller and Mark Shinesky, who they brought back earlier this year and doing great work. So ABC7 Sports is in better hands since the retirement of Jim Rhodes.
Yeah, this is going to be, like I said, I think he's going to be doing 5, 6, and 10 on the weekdays. Maybe occasional weekends whenever, I guess, Mark and Deion are off, on the field doing other stuff. They may bring somebody in that's kind of like a utility person, kind of like, pick up the slack whenever they're all busy. So I would be surprised they bring somebody in to, at some point to do that. But ABC7 Chicago, their sports. I mean, no shades because we had the other networks on. I don't want to shade any of those folks, but yeah, I think they're definitely up there as a class of it. And I think this is gonna be very interesting to see what it's gonna be interesting. But yeah, I mean, you can kind of tell that Ryan missed doing sports. So I'm glad he was able to get back into it. And didn't, like I said, he didn't skip a beat when he first started doing it after the Wednesday Live ended.
Yeah, no, he didn't. So congratulations to him. Lakina, as we usually do, let's end the show on a good note by displaying this.
It's been that tight for them, and right now it's been a struggle.
Kurashev, puck tipped in! And a Blackhawks goal from Connor Bedard.
If you want to see Connor Bedard light the lamp, come earliest to the game because he tends to score the first goal of the game, and that was a beauty. It's not always going to be pretty tic-tac-toe passing, but he goes to the net. Great job. A greasy goal, gets great body positioning on Victor Hedman. Made his way starting in Pee Wee hockey.
Foligno, Bedard! He scores!
Beauty of a pass by Nick Foligno. Less than 30 seconds, big face-off. Tampa Bay leaky defensively, and Connor Bedard again on his backhand.
And those highlights were courtesy of NBC Sports Chicago. That was Chris Voss. Was hoping we can get him on the show hopefully early next year, if nothing else. And Kaylee Chelios with the call there. Connor Bedard, he's now the youngest player to have multiple to record a multi-goal game. He's also he also finished with 4 points in that win against Toronto last night. There were 2 goals and 4 goals and 2 assists. He's actually the 3rd youngest player to record that, a 4-point game in NHL history. So, look, I know the Hawks have had their meetings and whatnot, but if nothing else, I know they've had a lot of injuries. Though Taylor Hall, he went out again with that injury with another injury last night. But Bedard has, at least for right now, at least so far, has definitely exceeded expectations, I think.
Yeah, as we said before, he has a very high IQ when it comes to hockey. He doesn't only just have the speed; he has the skill. His puck handling skills are just off the charts. You saw it again last night. And so, like you said, they beat Tampa Bay 5-3. Are the Hawks a playoff team? No, but they'll be fun and interesting to watch as we go into the winter.
Yeah, I think that's the first one in Tampa. I think since those Hawks Stanley Cup winning days. I think.
Yeah.
That's the first time they won in Tampa. So, I mean, look, yeah, like you said, I mean, look, this is what you want, the development of this kid. This is a kid that's, look, let's take it one game at a time. I mean, I was like, he'll be the first to tell you, look, he's still learning. After that 4-point game yesterday against the Lightning, he's still learning. So, I'm dying to see more of this because at least so far, at least he's only 18, which is crazy to think about it. But yeah. It's just amazing what he's been doing so far. Just incredible.
Yeah. And one quick thing, I know we got to bounce up out of here, but shout out to the Tampa Bay Lightning organization for giving Corey Perry a video tribute. Of course, he won the cup, really cool. Their last cup with them a couple years ago in 2021.
Yeah, that was really cool what they did yesterday. Look, a nice little his revenge game too. I think he had an assist in that game as well against the Lightning. So that was a pretty funny. And I think they're off until Sunday. I think, if I'm not mistaken, so if they play again.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so you guys can check that out too. But yeah, great game all around. But like I said, I mean, look, this is the most important thing. They play Florida on Sunday. That's a noon.
On the East Coast. Yep, noon Chicago time, but on the East Coast. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it should be a fun one there. But on that note, you follow me at Keita McGee on the Twitter, X at KXRB, and the IG.
You can follow your Shirley Sydney Brown on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. Make sure you follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms. Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app. Please subscribe to our podcast at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including that iHeartRadio app. And make sure you follow War Media on all social media platforms at WARR Media. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, exclusively on Sports Zone Chicago. One more again, as the kids would say. Check out Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, exclusively on Sports Zone Chicago.
And don't forget, you get Sports Zone Chicago, Sean and Maya, the Smoke Vellas, What's Up Cuz, all the shows right there for you on Roku TV. Just type in on the Roku TV app, whatever apps wherever you get your apps and your Play Store, whatever you got on your whatever device you have. Type in Sports Zone Chicago. It's all right there for you.
Yep, and don't forget you can catch Sports Zone Chicago on Roku TV. We're live and in living color, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, live and on demand. If you have Roku television, tap on that sports folder and download that Sports Zone Chicago app. If you don't have a Roku television, those handheld devices, your computers and those laptops, your PCs, just head up to Google Play Store, download that Roku TV app, and find Sports Zone Chicago through that avenue.
We just want to thank Evan Altman from Cubs Insider for joining us today. You can catch all his stuff right there on Real Cubs Insider. It's all right there for you on the podcast and everything else. So, for Sid, and
Christine for her picks.
And for her picks, thank you, Christine, for your picks as well. I'm sorry, she'll be back next week, so don't feel bad, folks. But enjoy all the sports this weekend. For Sid, I'm the Kansas Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, and we'll see you Monday.
Duh, Bears, holla!